Hello, everybody, and once again, welcome along to this edition of the Rebel Wide Board. And I suppose we got to start with the news earlier in the week that the hospitality industry, which was meant to reopen for indoor dining, I think was this Monday, isn't it? That has to be postponed, and there's a date mentioned 2 weeks' time. I'm not too sure about all that, but I suppose the big side of the story was Neffet's very grim advice to the government when they brought in figures and projections. And my God, if these figures were anywhere near the truth, um, the only business that would be doing well would be the local undertakers. Um, there was a massive public outcry, as you can imagine, and I'd say the government themselves, there was opposition within the government parties, um, not to mention the opposition that was coming across the floor from Mary Lou and Alan Kelly and these guys. Um, but and I suppose one aspect of it that, well, I won't say surprised me, nothing. When you reach this age, nothing surprises you anymore. But I suppose the abuse and vitriol that was directed towards Tony Holohan. I don't know this man, but I presume he's not doing this for the crack. There was allegations made that he was anti-drink, anti-socialising, and all of that. I'm not too sure where all of this is coming from, where all of this goes, what purpose it serves. But my God, there are a whole plethora of individuals now waiting on the sidelines to have a cut at this. Now, look, it's obviously devastating for the hospitality industry. I mean, they're a bit like the guys cutting the silage now. They have to check their WhatsApp in the morning, not WhatsApp, some app on the phone to see will it rain, whether they'll be able to serve food for the afternoon, and that causes all sorts of problems, as you well know. One interesting dimension to this is that hotels and restaurants and pubs that are open are having great difficulty in getting staff. And of course, you can half understand that because when this PUP payments were brought in, all these young people in particular that were on part-time jobs, maybe earning about €100 a week at more, they all transferred over to the PUP, and they're still in that. And you think that they want to go back to work for maybe 10 an hour for 5 hours a week? Not on a fit. So I think that's another issue that's going on. I mean, there's a whole agenda now coming up around this, that young people are being victimised and all this, and they're expected to serve the vaccinated crew. And my God, when they mentioned then about that the only people that could dine indoor were those of us that have been vaccinated. I'm just thinking of several pubs. One that comes to mind is Corney's in Newcestown. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of being in that most unusual establishment or not, but you should call there if you haven't. But I would imagine that the individual who would be employed as the vaccination adjudicator standing in the door checking to know whether the people of Newcestown and beyond are vaccinated or not. Anyway, that's another story. But I suppose the serious side of this is that there is a concern that if another wave arrives, that there are no certain things that are causing problems, and that is, that the health service again could be overrun. And that's not helped by the fact, which is now not spoken about anymore, but this attacking the system, the hacking of the system. I mean, for those working in the HSE would tell you it is still a major problem. And do they want another wave right now? No. So Micheál Martin, the Nemo Rangers man, Ducky Martin, as some people would call him when he was growing up in the Turner's Cross area, he was quite a proficient boxer, and his ability to duck punches earned him that nickname. But anyway, Micheál Martin has described this as a race between vaccination and the variant. And I suppose, look, if it means that they can get the vaccination program cranked up, and I suppose the fact now that some of these vaccines like the AstraZeneca and other ones like that can be given to younger people, that should speed it up. We're a long way off. Do you remember there was supposed to be 82,000 people having the first vaccine? I think got by today, or was it yesterday? That's now not going to happen. And the vaccination program was a good bit behind the curve, despite great efforts being made by everybody. So yeah, it was I suppose, majorly disappointing news for everybody. And I know now that those of you that will be thinking about going back to school, not that you're thinking about it now, but schools are already saying, look, it's going to be back to a situation that they left last May, thinking that by the time this September would come around, that things would be different. That doesn't seem to be the case. The other bit of a story, I suppose, that caught us was that the Northern Ireland Protocol and all of that. Well, the EU and Britain have come to some sort of a deal whereby sausages and it's known as the sausage war. Basically what's going on here is because Northern Ireland has direct access into the single market, they have to, it means that food coming into Northern Ireland then has to abide by EU regulations, and uncooked foods are part of this. But anyway, they have decided to move the full implementation onto the 30th of September. All of this basically is see would these boys get over the marching season, and if they got as far as September when there'd be pouring rain, they'd stay off the streets. I think that's probably more than anything else. But anyway, to move on to sport, and this is a big weekend for the Cork Senior Hurlers as they played the Munster Senior Hurling semi-final against Limerick. That game went on in Thurles on Saturday night at 7 o'clock. And of course, Limerick are the raging hot favourites. The fact they played Clare in a league match recently and they completely dismantled Cork's new system, their possession game. So Cork have absolutely nothing to lose. And when you look through the Cork hurling team, I think that there's all those hurlers that play for Cork are as good as any set of hurlers anywhere. Now, you might say, why are they not winning All Ireland? Well, probably the difference between winning and losing is not massive. Limerick are raging, I suppose, have pioneered the style of hurling that's built on speed, not speed, and that's, I think, where Cork will come into it, on strength and height. And, like when you look at their half-forward line, their half-forward line, particularly Gerard Hagerty, Tom Morrissey, like these are huge men. So when the sliotar's pucked out to them, and then you have the half-back line, Damer Burns, Declan Hannon is in the centre, probably the smallest guy, and Kyle Hayes. But it's going to be interesting how Cork man up to this one, because Patrick Collins, the goalkeeper from Ballinasig the last day when they played in the league match, like the puckouts, he just couldn't get them away because the instructions were given. Donald O'Grady has brought into this possession game. So it will be interesting to see what's going to happen. It will be an interesting tactical match. And players like Seamie Hannity, and I notice now that Conor Cahalane is being spoken as one of these hard workers that may win possession in the half-back line. And when you look at the Cork forwards, like fellas like Robbie O'Flynn, Jack O'Connor, of course, Patrick Horgan, Shane Kingston, and more of them, they're really, really speed merchants. Another aspect, of course, is the Mark Coleman, the young man and he's only 23 years of age, and already he's a major player for Cork in that he sets up so many attacks. And Limerick directed him, they targeted him the last day by putting Keenan on him. So how Cork can get Mark Coleman into kind of a free role. So it's going to be an interesting one. Favourites don't always win. That's why Germany is not in the Euros anymore. That's why France are not in the Euros. That's why Holland are not there. And just like the Czech Republic, I think, in Holland, the Czechs have a great record against them. Cork have a good record against Limerick. So don't be surprised if after the match, the person whose job it is to find the man of the match person could be looking around for maybe somebody like Seamie Hannity. Anyway, they carry out best wishes, no doubt about that. No, there's 2,500 people allowed go to that game because there's one of these test events, and my God, this thing is gaining momentum. There, the Leinster hurling semi-finals, which run on Saturday as well. There's 8,000 a row load in there, and they reckon if that keeps going, there could be 40,000 at the All Ireland. Then you look at what's happening in England, whereby they reckon that the situation in Scotland, yesterday 3,900 cases, which was the biggest number of cases they've had since the pandemic began, and quite a lot of it has been connected back as far as, and a lot of them were males, which means that, well, God, I better be careful here, I'll get hammered. The argument being made is that these were guys that were associated with going to watching the Euros, going to the soccer match between Scotland and and England. And now you had Boris Johnson. Last week I was mentioning that to you. He's given permission that for the Euros there's going to be 60,000 on Tuesday nights and Wednesday night semi-finals. And I would imagine that, what will happen in England and how it pans out will indicate or will inform a lot of what happens in terms of reopening in Ireland. Anyway, so that's the Cork situation. Another big match that's on this weekend is for the Arragadeen and the Glen Rovers intermediate hurlers. They play in the Intermediate Hurling Championship, and from last year they're involved in basically, it's now a straight relegation final on Inbrinny on Sunday, and the losers go down to the lower grade intermediate. And it would appear that maybe the Glen Rovers could have a slight advantage here. The other game in the Munster Championship, as you know, is Tip and Clare. And after Clare's performance last week, they did beat Waterford, but my God, they missed so many chances. So dependent on Tony Kelly, you'd have to say that Tipperary, will win that one. The Leinster senior hurling semi-finals, and they'll be separating of the sheep from the goats here as well, I would imagine. Dublin play Galway at 2 o'clock. There can only be one winner. Galway are a serious hurling team and probably one of the top favourites. Well, sure, look, there's only 5 of them. They're going to win it anyway. So I think Galway win that one. Kilkenny and Wexford, though, will be interesting. I was talking to a Wexford person recently. He said they've been so bad in the lead up to some of these matches that maybe this is, and I definitely think it's David Fitz's final year, and were he to lose this one, regardless of what happens to qualifiers. At Kilkenny, everybody knows that, that they're not the team of old. So that will probably be one of the best hurling matches of the weekend. In terms of football, and what in last weekend, some of the football results were pretty one-sided. And the fact that the footballers haven't got a second chance is, I think, grossly unfair. And is another example of where the GA, this is not their first time doing this, where there's caudal inequality, I would call it, where the hurlers get a second chance, the footballers don't. But that's the way it is now. And I think that the rebranding of the senior championship, the Intercounty Football Championship, is going to be reformatted. And I think COVID has contributed to this, because the fact that there was no backdoor over the last 2 years, some of these matches were so one-sided, it was absolutely... it's a pity, because some people won't be watching these matches. You need to know the results before you start, but maybe not in Ulster. And the 2 games that are on there this weekend, you have Monaghan playing for Monaghan. Monaghan would be the favourite. Donny Buckley, this Kerry genius of a defensive coach, is involved with Monaghan. And the other game, Armagh playing Antrim, and Armagh, who are considered a good team, and of course they have another Kerry man involved, Kieran Donaghy, with them. So I'd expect Armagh to win that one. In Connacht, Galway take out Roscommon. That'll probably be, at least you don't know right now, do you, that who's going to win it? Roscommon have a bit of an Indian sign sometimes over Galway. Galway have been more than disappointed. Remember, they were talked about at the start before this pandemic in 2020 as a real contender for the All-Ireland. Padraig Joyce had taken over. They're playing a really lovely style of football. God, the wheels have come off that wagon since then. So I'm not too sure how that is going to go. If you go to Leinster, and the biggest talking point in Leinster at the moment is, has Stephen Cluxton retired? Last weekend he played a club match with his club Parnells, and all these players now that retire, well, not all of them, but they issue statements. They thank the GPA, thank the coach, thank everyone else, and there's publicity generated, and fair play to them. But Stephen Cluxton, you get the impression that if he wants to walk away, he'll just do that. I'm not too sure. What's the story? Kieran Kilkenny said he's in the plans. Others are not too sure, but I don't think he'll be playing this weekend. For the record, the matches they're on, Laois versus Westmeath. Mike Quirky, Kerryman in charge of Laois, they have been atrocious. Westmeath have been unlucky in the league, so that should be a close enough game. Meath and Longford beat Carlow last week. Meath are considered probably the second or third team, maybe the second team in Leinster. They should win that one. Wexford and Dublin, Borough Wexford, at least they get a second match. They beat Wicklow last week and they're taking on the Dubs, and I can't think of their manager. He's Shane somebody, but he said they'd afford the Dubs the respect that they deserve. And fair play to him for having the neck to say that in the first place. Then you have Kildare versus Offaly beat Lowood, and this is a match where you have two there's, again, these Kerrymen are all over the place. Jack O'Connor's involved in Kildare, and John Mahan, who's been on sidelines for donkey's years, is in charge of Offaly. Kildare will just simply have to win that one. It's going to be Jack out the door, I think, if they don't. So, but the downside of Kildare winning is they meet Dublin in the semi-final. But they are the quarter-finals in that anyway. In terms of the Euros, like some seriously entertaining games, and of course, here on this side of the pond, I think we want England to stay winning so we can get another opportunity. We wish that they lose if we get that kind of perverse logic. But anyway, they are down to the last 8, and the quarterfinals take place on Friday and Saturday night. The first quarterfinal Friday night, you have Spain playing Switzerland, who defeated the French. It's an incredible match. So you'd imagine Spain there, and then that game, they're on at 5 and 8. The second game is Belgium, who are a really good team, against Italy, who are, I think, maybe one of the surprise packets, if we could use that about Italian soccer. So that they are those 2 quarterfinals. The other quarterfinals, then the famous Czech Republic take on Denmark, and like, I suppose after the incident that happened, the first game that Denmark played, you know, they're really playing so well since then. That'll be an interesting one. Of course, England should beat the Ukraine, and for the English, their victory the other night over the Germans, the first in 55 years, and for Gareth Southgate, who was another fellow who was, you know, the bacon slicer, is so close to his rear end every time England play. God, they're a ridiculous nation at times, right? Despite the fact of having great people. But anyway, they carry on of them, which maybe our own carry on sometimes are much better. Anyway, Southgate, like a conservative manager, and he kept off all these attacking forwards. Like, I was going to say our own Jack Grealish, but we'll mention him, Jordan Sancho, Mason Mount, and this guy, Phil Foden. But he kept them off, played conservatively, won the match, and it was an incredible result for them. And of course, you have these 2 Irish guys, as we mentioned, Jack Grealish, whose grandmother, I think, comes from around Sneem, and you have Declan Rice. And do you remember when they were declaring for England, there was so many jokes going around the place that they'd probably get 1 cap. But anyway, that's the semi-finals, we said, next Tuesday and Wednesday night at 8 o'clock on the final, then at 8 o'clock on Sunday. So that's kind of a quick look. We can't let the occasion go without mentioning golf. The Irish Open is on this weekend, and of course Shane Lowry, it would be great if he could win it, because 11 or 12 years ago he won it as an amateur. He wasn't able to take up the money then, but he's playing this weekend, and so is Rory McIlroy. I'm a bit disappointed that some of the Cork amateur golfers that have turned professional lately weren't able to get an opportunity to play in it. But anyway, that's going on as we speak. Oh yes, an interesting observation was that Michael D. Higgins, who hasn't been out of the orders for quite a while, he was down in Greystones during the week opening a refurbished addiction centre, and he spoke at length about watching sport over the past while and the amount of gambling ads and for bookmaking companies. And he spoke about the distress that gambling has caused to Irish society. And it got me thinking a little bit. Not easy. Is it not easy or not hard? I'm not too sure. But anyway, I remember I might have mentioned this to you before, like that a well-known Irish gambling company, they were recruiting young, talented graduates from a business course, and they went for the top guys. Their only job was to create odds so that your money would never come back to you. And but the marketing ploys that they're going on with is beyond belief. And when you're watching any of these sports events now, these ads come on. Like, there's one company that a lot of you follow probably, and their social media is operated by 3, I'll ask you to guess, comedians. The way these guys operate, as soon as anything starts, they'll start tweeting or posting really humorous comments. And then in the middle of it, the odds will come up. England versus Germany. You can imagine all the amount of comments that came up about this. Remember, talking about Harry Kane, that every time he touched the ball, that his value was dropping, all this kind of stuff. And then the odds, who do you think will win now, and all this kind of thing. So it's an unhealthy relationship sometimes the sport has with the gambling industry. And I know there are families out there who've been pretty devastated by all of this. Anyway, that's that. But we got to end on a good note before we go, and that's to talk to you about a fundraising event that's been organised by a gentleman, and he is that from the Kinsale area. Some of you that live in that beautiful part of the country will know Robbie O'Leary, quite unassuming gentleman. I've often seen him at GA matches and doing work around the Kinsale club. Well, anyway, I think it was back in 2015, he went to his GP for some test, and I don't know, had a blood test, and the blood test showed up, and he got a few phone calls, and the next thing he was diagnosed with a condition called multiple myeloma. This is good for the undertaking business, but look, there's great treatments for it. And Robbie went through about months of chemotherapy. Then he was deemed suitable for a stem cell transplant, which was carried out up in Galway. And he was in Galway for that period of time, for a certain few days, and then he was brought to Cork, and he was in isolation down there for 28 days, and he's back in great health. But as a kind of I suppose, thanksgiving to the people that operate in the hematology unit in CUH and in the transplant unit of Galway University Hospital. He's doing a virtual walk now. It's 188 kilometres from the door in Galway Hospital down to the door in CUH, and he came down that journey in an ambulance. So he's now going to walk it, and there's an iDonate page set up. It's www.idonate.ie/Robbie's Walk. It's so deserving of your support, and don't I know what you've done in charities all along anyway, and I know this is going to be supported. Like, the charities are brilliant, and the individual involved is a fabulous gentleman as well. So until the next time, take care and God bless.